The stars looked different from the lunar observatory. Eleanor Wright had spent countless nights staring at them, searching for patterns, for meaning, for any sign that humanity was not alone. Tonight, those patterns changed. Eleanor frowned at her monitor. The signal repeated every 12 seconds with perfect precision. Not random noise, not a glitch in the equipment, something deliberate. "Ben, are you seeing this?" She called to her colleague across the dim room. Ben Miller looked up from his own screens. "The burst from Sector 7? Yeah, I thought it was interference at first." "It's structured. Look at the pattern." Eleanor pushed her dark hair away from her face, excitement rising in her chest. "This is exactly what we've been looking for." 48 million miles away, Captain Samuel Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance. Earth hung like a blue marble in the viewport, Mars a rusty dot in the distance. His ship patrolled the space between them, ensuring the safety of the transport vessels that served the colonies. "Captain, we're picking up unusual energy readings at the edge of the system," said Lieutenant Grace Kelly, her eyes fixed on the sensor display. "Asteroid?" Rodriguez asked, though something in her voice told him it wasn't. "No, sir. It's moving. Against the orbital plane." She looked up, face pale. "Multiple objects, massive scale. Nothing in our database matches the signature." Rodriguez felt a chill run down his spine. Humanity had spread throughout the solar system in the past decades, establishing colonies on Mars, mining operations on the Moon, research stations on Europa. But they had never encountered another intelligent species. Until now. "Alert Earth Defense Command," he ordered, "and get me visual confirmation." On Luna, Eleanor's discovery had already reached the highest levels of government. The observatory buzzed with activity as scientists and military personnel crowded around her workstation. "The transmission contains mathematical sequences," she explained to Admiral John Foster. "They're establishing a common language framework. Whoever sent this is intelligent and wants to communicate." "Or they want us to think that," the Admiral replied grimly. "How long until you can translate?" Eleanor's response was cut short by an urgent message from the communications officer. "Admiral, we're getting reports from the Defiance. Unknown vessels have entered the system. They're not responding to hails. The first attack came without warning. The Mars colony, home to 30,000 people, erupted in a series of explosions that could be seen from space. The dome structures collapsed, venting atmosphere into the thin Martian air. Emergency signals flooded all channels, then went silent one by one. On the Defiance, Rodriguez watched in horror as the feed from Mars cut out. His ship raced toward the colony, but he knew they would be too late. Multiple contacts approaching. "Sir," Lieutenant Kelly reported, her voice steady despite the fear. "They'll intercept us in 3 minutes." "Battle stations," Rodriguez ordered. "All weapons hot. Whatever these things are, they just declared war. The alien vessels dwarfed the Defiance, black angular shapes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. When they fired, their weapons tore through the human ship's armor like it was paper. The Defiance shuddered, systems failing across the board. "Return fire," Rodriguez commanded, gripping his chair as the ship lurched beneath him. Their most powerful missiles detonated against the alien hull without leaving a scratch. "Sir, we've lost engines," Kelly reported. "Weapons at 20%. They're toying with us." Rodriguez made the hardest decision of his career. Abandon ship, get as many people to the escape pods as possible. He opened a channel to Earth. "This is Captain Rodriguez of the UES Defiance. We are under attack by unknown hostile forces. Mars colony is lost. I repeat, Mars colony is lost. They're coming for Earth next." In the lunar observatory, Eleanor worked frantically to decode the aliens' communications. Her computers captured transmissions between their vessels, complex patterns that made little sense at first. "They call themselves the Cravor," she told Admiral Foster, eyes red from lack of sleep. "From what I can tell, they consider themselves purifiers of some kind. They've done this before many times." "How many times?" Foster asked. Eleanor's voice shook as she answered. "I've identified references to 17 different species. all extinct now. The Kravor fleet moved methodically through the solar system. Jupiter's moons fell silent. The mining stations in the asteroid belt stopped transmitting. Earth prepared its defenses, but everyone knew it wouldn't be enough. Not against an enemy that could destroy whole colonies in hours. 1 week after first contact, the first Kravor message reached Earth. It was broadcast on all frequencies in perfect English. Humanity, your existence is impure, your technology primitive, your species unworthy. Surrender to purification or face extinction. You have one Earth day to decide. World leaders gathered in emergency session. Military forces mobilized. Civilians fled to shelters. But where could they go when the enemy controlled the skies? Eleanor made a breakthrough during those desperate hours. Buried in the Kravor transmissions was something unexpected. References to an ancient encounter, a defeat, a fear. They're afraid of something, she told Foster. Something they found long ago. Something that hurt them. Can we use that? The Admiral asked. I don't know yet, but it's our only hope. The deadline passed. Earth gave its answer in the form of every missile, every defense satellite, every weapon humanity possessed. For a brief moment, it seemed like it might be enough. The first wave of Kravor ships faltered under the barrage, then the second wave arrived. Rodriguez, rescued from his escape pod by a passing transport, watched from orbit as the Kravor weapons rained down on Earth. Cities vanished in flashes of light. The blue marble turned gray with smoke and dust. We need to regroup, he told the handful of military personnel who had survived with him. Find a place to hide, to plan, this isn't over. On the surface, Eleanor grabbed what research she could and fled the observatory as Kravor forces landed. The aliens moved with purpose, setting up structures that hummed with energy. Processing centers, they would later learn. Places where humans were sorted, categorized, and mostly eliminated. They brought hell to our home, Eleanor whispered to herself as she hid in the ruins of what had once been a thriving lunar colony. But they don't know what humans are capable of when pushed too far. She clutched her datapad, the one containing the secret she had discovered in the Kravor communications. The thing they feared, the nightmare that might be humanity's only hope. 3 months passed since the Kravor arrived. Earth was no longer the blue planet it once was. Smoke filled the skies. Cities lay in ruins. Billions were dead. Eleanor Wright huddled in an abandoned military bunker deep in the Rocky Mountains. Around her, 24 survivors planned their next move. Some were soldiers, others civilians with useful skills. All were thin, dirty, and scared. Lisa Ortiz paced the room, her military boots echoing on the concrete floor. Before the invasion, she had been a Marine captain. Now, she led this small resistance cell. The aliens have set up a new processing center near what used to be Denver, Lisa said, pointing to a hand-drawn map. They're bringing in humans by the truckload. To do what? Asked a young man named Peter. Eleanor answered, her voice tired. Sort them. Some become workers. Some become test subjects. Most are killed. She didn't mention what happened to the test subjects. She had seen the results firsthand during her escape from the lunar observatory. Humans cut open, changed, turned into something not quite human anymore. We need to hit the supply line, Lisa decided. Slow them down, free as many people as we can. In the asteroid belt, far from Earth, Samuel Rodriguez looked at what remained of humanity's space forces. 6 military vessels, all damaged. 12 civilian ships retrofitted with whatever weapons they could salvage. Less than 2,000 personnel. Status report, he ordered, standing on the bridge of the UES Relentless, a cargo ship now serving as his command center. Ceres base remains undetected, replied Frank Gomez, his new second-in-command. Fuel supplies at 40%, food for 3 more months. Rodriguez nodded. It wasn't good, but they were alive. The Kravor controlled Earth, Mars, and the major moons, but they hadn't found this small base hidden in the asteroids. Not yet. Any word from the ground? He asked. Frank shook his head. Communications are spotty. We've picked up resistance broadcasts, but they're coded. We're working on it. Rodriguez stared at the display showing Earth, now surrounded by Cravor ships. Keep trying. We need to coordinate if we're going to fight back. Back on Earth, Eleanor and Lisa's team prepared for their raid. They had few weapons, some military rifles, homemade explosives, and 2 Cravor guns taken from dead aliens. Remember, Lisa told the group, these aren't independent creatures. They're drones, all connected to a central mind. Kill one, and another takes its place with all the same knowledge. Eleanor had been studying the Cravor language and behavior since first contact. They're a hive mind, she explained. Billions of bodies, one consciousness. That's why they're so efficient, but it might also be a weakness. The raid began at night. The resistance fighters approached the convoy carrying humans to the processing center. The road passed through a narrow canyon, the perfect spot for an ambush. When the alien vehicles entered the canyon, Lisa gave the signal. Explosives detonated, blocking the road. The fighters opened fire from the cliffs above. The Cravor responded, immediately, moving with one purpose. Their weapons fired strange energy bolts that melted rock and flesh alike. 3 resistance fighters died in seconds, but the plan worked. While the Cravor fought Lisa's team, Eleanor led another group to the transport vehicles. They broke open the doors, freeing nearly 100 prisoners. This way, Eleanor shouted, guiding the confused people toward escape routes they had prepared. Among the prisoners was a thin man with intelligent eyes. He grabbed Eleanor's arm as they ran. I'm Alan Walsh, he gasped. Neurobiologist. I have information about the aliens. Tell me later, Eleanor replied. Right now we run. Back at the bunker, after the survivors were settled, Alan shared what he had learned in captivity. The Cravor were studying us, especially our brains, he explained. I was forced to help with their experiments. Why would they need human help? Lisa asked suspiciously. Because something unusual was happening, Alan said. Some prisoners were developing resistance to their control methods. The Cravor couldn't understand why. Eleanor leaned forward. What kind of resistance? Mental resistance. The Cravor use a field that should suppress independent thought, make humans easier to control, but it wasn't working on everyone. Alan looked around the room. They're worried about it, I could tell. This matched what Eleanor had found in her research. In their communications, they keep referencing something they call the fragmentation. It seems to be something they fear greatly. That night, as the resistance celebrated their small victory, a Cravor patrol found one of their hidden sensors. The aliens attacked without warning, breaking through the bunker's outer defenses. Everyone to the escape tunnels, Lisa shouted as explosions rocked the base. They fled through narrow passages dug into the mountain. Behind them, Cravor drones methodically cleared room after room. Lisa took a position at a choke point, firing her weapon to cover the retreat. Get Eleanor and Alan out, she ordered the others. They're more important than me. Eleanor didn't want to leave her. Lisa, come on. Someone has to slow them down. Go. Lisa pushed her toward the tunnel. The last Eleanor saw of Lisa was her silhouette against flashes of alien weapons fire. Eleanor, Alan, and 7 others escaped the attack. They hiked through the wilderness for days, avoiding Cravor patrols until they reached another resistance hideout. There, Eleanor received a coded message transmitted from space. It took her hours to decode it. It's from Captain Rodriguez, she told the group. He's alive. There are survivors in the asteroid belt. Alan studied the message. He says they've been monitoring Cravor communications too. They found references to something called the Ancient Enemy in a star system 40 light-years from here. Eleanor nodded. The thing the Cravor fear. The thing that caused the fragmentation. If we could find it. How? One of the survivors asked. We can barely survive on Earth, let alone travel to another star. Eleanor's eyes lit up with the first hope she had felt in months. Before the invasion, we were developing experimental faster-than-light drives. If Rodriguez has access to that technology, we need to contact him, Alan said. Compare what we know. Eleanor began working on a response message. As she worked, She thought about Lisa, about the billions who had died, about the processing centers where humans were treated like cattle. The Kravor brought hell to us, she whispered. Now we need to find something that will terrify even them. 1 year had passed since the Kravor invaded Earth. Winter gripped the planet, snow falling on ruined cities and alien structures alike. Humanity was on the edge of extinction, but not defeated. Eleanor Wright and Alan Walsh had journeyed for months through dangerous territory, avoiding Kravor patrols and helping other survivors when possible. Their goal was the coast, where a submarine from Rodriguez's fleet would pick them up. "Are you sure this meeting place is safe?" Alan asked as they hiked through a forest of dead trees. Eleanor checked her makeshift compass. No place is safe anymore. But Rodriguez found a way to mask their approach from Kravor sensors. "If we can reach the coast by tomorrow night, we have a chance." They traveled in silence after that, each lost in their own thoughts. Eleanor carried a small device containing everything she had learned about the Kravor language and communications. Alan had his notes on their neural structure, based on his time in the processing center. The submarine arrived as promised, surfacing briefly in a hidden cove. Eleanor and Alan boarded quickly, along with 3 other resistance members they had met on their journey. "Welcome aboard," said the submarine captain, a woman named Karen Phillips. "Captain Rodriguez is waiting for you at Europa base." The journey to Jupiter's moon took 2 weeks. The submarine rendezvoused with a small stealth ship at a predetermined point in the Atlantic. From there, they used a series of careful jumps, hiding in the shadow of planets and moons to avoid detection. Europa base was unlike anything Eleanor had expected. Built into the moon's icy crust, hidden beneath the radiation that confused Kravor sensors, it housed nearly 500 survivors. Scientists, engineers, soldiers, and civilians worked together in the harsh environment. Rodriguez greeted them personally when they arrived. He looked older, his face lined with stress, but his eyes burned with determination. "Dr. Wright, Dr. Walsh," he said, shaking their hands. "Your work may be our last hope." He led them through tunnels carved into the ice to a large chamber filled with equipment. "Welcome to the Nightmare Project," he said. "Nightmare Project?" Alan asked. "That's what we're calling our plan," Rodriguez explained, "because we're going to give the Kravor something they've never experienced before. A true nightmare." In the center of the room stood a ship unlike any Eleanor had seen before. Sleek and dark, built with a combination of human and salvaged Kravor technology. "The UES Vengeance," Rodriguez said with pride. "Our last destroyer, retrofitted with experimental technology, including a fold drive that can bend space-time." "Faster than light travel," Eleanor whispered. "It was theoretical, before the invasion. We've moved beyond theory," Rodriguez replied. "Necessity pushed us further than we ever thought possible. The drive works, but we only have enough specialized fuel for 1 round trip." "A trip to where?" Alan asked. Eleanor already knew the answer. "The home of the ancient enemy. The ones who frightened the Kravor." Over the next days, Eleanor and Alan shared everything they had learned with the scientists at Europa base. Together, they pieced together a remarkable story. 50,000 years ago, the Kravor encountered an advanced civilization called the Nizari. The Kravor attacked, as was their nature, expecting an easy victory. Instead, the Nizari deployed a weapon that targeted the Kravor hive mind itself. "It's a neurological virus," Alan explained during a briefing session. "It forces individuality onto the drones, making them experience emotions and independent thought for the first time. For a hive mind species, that's like suddenly having your body parts develop minds of their own," Eleanor added. "Imagine if your hand could suddenly think for itself and disagree with your decisions." Rodriguez nodded. "And you believe this weapon is still on the Nizari homeworld?" "According to the Kravor communications, they never returned to that system after their defeat," Eleanor said. "They're still afraid of it, even 50,000 years later." A team was assembled for the mission. Rodriguez would command the UES Vengeance. Eleanor and Alan would go to interpret any Nizari technology they found. Major Keith Harrison would lead a small team of special forces for security. The journey will take 3 months each way with the full drive, Rodriguez told them. We'll be completely out of contact with Europa Base during that time. While the Vengeance prepared for launch, resistance cells on Earth coordinated a global offensive to distract the Cravor. Reports came in that Lisa Ortiz had survived her last stand at the bunker. She now led the largest resistance group in North America, targeting the main processing center in what used to be Denver. The night before the mission launched, Eleanor sat in the observation dome, looking at distant Earth, a pale blue dot barely visible through Jupiter's glow. Alan joined her, sitting quietly for a moment before speaking. I've been studying the Cravor communications you decoded. There's something odd about their invasion pattern. What do you mean? Eleanor asked. They're not just conquering for resources or territory. They're running from something. Alan showed her his analysis on a tablet. Their expansion across the galaxy isn't strategic, it's desperate, like they're trying to build enough strength to face some greater threat. Eleanor considered this. So they brought hell to us because they're afraid of something worse? It seems that way. And whatever it is, it's been chasing them for millennia. The next day, the UES Vengeance departed Europa Base. The full drive activated, creating a bubble of warped space-time around the ship. Stars stretched and blurred as they accelerated beyond light speed. For 3 months, the crew studied everything. They knew about the Nizari and the weapon they had created. Eleanor continued decoding Cravor communications they had intercepted before leaving. Alan worked with the ship's medical team to understand how the neurological virus might affect the Cravor. If we can modify it, he told Eleanor, make it more effective against their current neural structure, we might have a chance to stop them. And is that ethical? Eleanor asked quietly. To fundamentally change another species against their will? Alan looked at her sharply. After what they did to Earth? To billions of innocent people? Eleanor had no answer. The question haunted her throughout the journey. Finally, the Vengeance arrived at their destination, a small rocky world orbiting a binary star system. From orbit, they could see the ruins of a vast civilization, cities that once covered continents, orbital structures that had survived millennia. No signs of active technology, reported the sensor operator. But there's something strange about those structures. They're undamaged. After 50,000 years, they should have crumbled. As the Vengeance descended toward the surface, Eleanor felt a mixture of hope and dread. If they found the weapon, humanity might have a chance. But using it would mean crossing a line they could never uncross. Look, Alan said suddenly, pointing at the main view screen. Those buildings, they're lighting up. One by one, structures on the surface began to glow with a soft blue light, as if awakening from a long sleep, as if they had been waiting for someone to return, as if they had been waiting for humanity all along. The Vengeance landed in a wide clearing surrounded by gleaming structures. Even after 50,000 years, no dust covered the buildings. No plants grew through the cracks. Everything looked as if the owners had simply stepped away for a moment. Major Keith Harrison led the first team out, scanning for threats. Eleanor, Alan, and Rodriguez followed, their breath showing in the cold, thin air of the Nizari world. The atmosphere is breathable but cold, Alan reported, checking his equipment. Gravity slightly lower than Earth. They approached the nearest structure, a tall spire that pulsed with soft blue light. As they drew closer, an opening appeared, in its side as if inviting them in. It's responding to our presence, Eleanor said with wonder. Some kind of automatic system must still be working. Harrison didn't lower his weapon. Or it's a trap. The Cravor never returned here, Rodriguez reminded him. Whatever scared them is still active. That might be our best hope. They entered the spire. Inside, corridors lit up ahead of them, guiding their way deeper into the structure. The walls were covered with intricate patterns that shifted and changed as they passed. These are language symbols, Eleanor realized, recording everything with her device. They're changing to match our brainwave patterns. The building is trying to communicate with us. After walking for what seemed like miles through twisting corridors, they reached a vast chamber at the heart of the structure. The ceiling soared hundreds of feet above them, and in the center stood a glowing blue cube, suspended in mid-air. As they approached, the cube expanded, revealing complex machinery inside. A soft voice spoke, somehow understandable despite being in an alien language. "Welcome, distant children. We have waited 49,127 cycles for thinking minds to find us." Eleanor stepped forward. "Who are you?" The blue light formed into a shape resembling a tall, slender being with 4 arms and a large head. "I am the Archive, keeper of the Nazari consciousness. Once we were many. Now we exist only in data." Alan moved closer, fascinated. "Your entire species uploaded their minds?" "Not by choice," the Archive replied. "The purifiers, you call them Kravor, came to our worlds. They destroyed our bodies. We preserved our minds." Rodriguez asked the question they had traveled 40 light years to ask. "We need your help. The Kravor are destroying our world too." The Archive's light dimmed slightly. "We know. We have observed. Your resistance is remarkable. Most species fall completely within days. Your people created a weapon against them," Eleanor said. "Something that affected their hive mind. We need it." The Archive was silent for a moment. Then the chamber around them transformed, showing images of a war fought long ago. Beautiful cities burning, strange ships filling the skies, slender beings running in terror from advancing Kravor drones. "We were peaceful explorers," the Archive explained. "We had never known war. The purifiers gave us no choice but to create a defense. But we completed it too late to save our bodies." The image changed to show a small device, no bigger than a human hand. "The neurological virus was our last creation. It does not destroy bodies, it transforms minds." Alan understood immediately. "It forced individuality onto their hive mind." "Yes. For beings who have never known separation, it creates what you might call a nightmare. The horror of being alone, in one's thoughts, of having to decide for oneself, of feeling fear, doubt, and regret." Eleanor felt a chill. "And it worked? They fled. They never returned. But by then, only a few thousand of us remained alive. We chose to upload our consciousness into the Archive rather than face extinction." Rodriguez studied the images of the device. "Can you show us how to recreate this weapon?" "I can do more than that." The room shifted again, a section of the floor opening to reveal a small chamber below. Inside lay hundreds of devices identical to the one in the image. "We made many but had no time to deploy them." Harrison whistled softly. "So we just take these back to Earth and activate them?" "It is not so simple," the Archive warned. "The Kravor have evolved since our encounter. Their neural structure will have adapted. The virus must be modified." Alan nodded. "I can help with that. With my knowledge of their current neural structure and your technology, we might be able to update it." While Alan worked with the Archive to modify the devices, Eleanor explored deeper into the structure, guided by lights that appeared before her. She found herself in a circular room lined with what looked like glass containers. As she approached, the containers lit up, revealing shapes inside. Humanoid figures, sleeping. "They're alive," she gasped, calling to the others through her communication device. The Archive's voice came from all around her. "The last of our physical forms. 217 Nazari who chose stasis over digital existence. They sleep until the threat is gone." "Can they be awakened?" Eleanor asked. "They can. But without their help, you cannot properly deploy the weapon. Their minds hold the key to targeting the Kravor collective consciousness precisely." When the others joined her, Rodriguez studied the sleeping Nazari with concern. "Awakening them means involving them in our war. Is that right?" "It's their war too," Harrison pointed out. "They've been fighting it for 50,000 years, just in a different way." Before they could decide, alarms echoed through the structure. The Archive's voice became urgent. "Purifier ships have entered the system. They have detected your vessel." "How?" Harrison demanded. "We were cloaked. They have grown more sensitive to certain energy signatures. They remember this world. They fear what is here." Rodriguez activated his communication device. Vengeance. Prepare for immediate evacuation. All teams return to the ship. There is no time, the archive said. Their weapons will destroy your vessel before you can escape the atmosphere. Eleanor looked at the sleeping Nizari. Wake them, please. We need their help, and they deserve to know their enemy has returned. The archive hesitated. To awaken them is to potentially doom the last of our physical species. To leave them sleeping is to doom them anyway, Eleanor argued. If the Kravor find them, they'll destroy them. The decision was made. The stasis chambers began to open, mist spilling onto the floor. The first of the Nizari opened its large, multifaceted eyes, seeing the universe for the first time in 50,000 years. While the Nizari awakened, the team returned to the main chamber where Alan worked. He had modified several of the devices, adapting them to the Kravor's evolved neural patterns. They're ready, he announced, but we need a delivery system that can reach the entire hive mind. One of the awakened Nizari, taller than the others, approached them. The archive translated its musical speech. I am Sentinel, leader of the Sleepers. We can help you transmit the virus through the quantum network the purifiers use to maintain their collective consciousness. How do we get it to them? Rodriguez asked. Our ship is trapped. Sentinel's large eyes blinked slowly. This facility was not just our archive, it was our defense center. We have weapons that can protect your ship long enough to launch the virus. Outside, the Kravor fleet had entered orbit, dozens of massive vessels blocking out the stars. They began bombarding the surface, but energy shields shimmered into existence above the Nizari structures, deflecting the attacks. Eleanor, Alan, and the team worked frantically with the Nizari to prepare the weapon. The modified virus was loaded into a quantum transmitter that could bypass conventional defenses. As the facility shook from near misses, Eleanor found herself questioning their plan. Are we doing the right thing? She asked Alan quietly. We're about to fundamentally change another species against their will. Alan looked at her with tired eyes. After what they did to humanity? To countless other species? What choice do we have? Eleanor had no answer. But as she gave the final command to launch the virus, she whispered, The Kravor brought hell to the universe, and humanity is about to respond with a nightmare. The quantum transmitter hummed to life, filling the chamber with energy. Sentinel and the other awakened Nizari joined their minds with the archive, guiding the neurological virus toward its target. The modified weapon launched, riding the very communication networks the Kravor used to maintain their hive mind. On the Kravor ships orbiting the planet, nothing seemed to happen at first. Then, one by one, drones began to act strangely. Some dropped their weapons, others froze in place. Many began making sounds their vocal structures had never produced before, cries of confusion and fear. Through the Nizari's monitoring systems, Eleanor and the others watched as the virus spread from ship to ship. The Kravor fleet's coordinated attack faltered. Some vessels continued firing, but others broke formation, drifting aimlessly or powering down completely. It's working, Alan whispered, watching the data streams. The virus is breaking their connection to the hive mind. They're experiencing individual consciousness for the first time. What about the rest of their empire? Rodriguez asked. The forces on Earth and throughout the galaxy? Sentinel's translated voice was calm. The virus travels through their quantum communication network at speeds beyond light. Every Kravor connected to the collective consciousness will be affected within hours. Harrison studied the tactical displays with professional interest. Some ships are still fighting. The effect isn't universal. Different drones have different neural structures, Alan explained. Some will resist longer than others. Some may even adapt. But the hive mind itself has been infected. The Kravor as a unified force are finished. Eleanor felt no joy in their victory, only a deep weariness. We should return to Earth as soon as possible. See what's happening there. With the Nizari's help, they repaired damage to the Vengeance and prepared for departure. Sentinel and 12 other Nizari chose to join, them bringing the consciousness archive in a portable form. Our worlds are gone, Sentinel explained. "But perhaps we can help rebuild yours and find a new home among the stars." The journey back to Earth took 3 months, just as before. During that time, they received no communications from the Europa base or any human outposts. The silence was worrying. When they finally reached the solar system, they found chaos. Cravor ships drifted in space, some damaged, others simply inactive. A few fired upon the Vengeance as it approached, but their attacks were uncoordinated and easily avoided. "Something's definitely happened to them," Rodriguez said, watching the screens. "But I don't think they're all experiencing the virus the same way." Alan nodded. Some would have gone mad immediately. Others might have adapted somewhat, holding onto fragments of their former selves. They're individuals now, each responding differently. As they approached Earth, they received their first human communication in 6 months. A voice crackled over the radio, filled with static but unmistakably human. "Unidentified vessel, this is Earth Defense Command. Identify yourself, immediately." Rodriguez laughed with relief. "Earth Defense Command? Since when do we have that again?" he responded, identifying the Vengeance and its mission. After a brief silence, the voice returned, this time belonging to Lisa Ortiz. "Rodriguez? Eleanor? Is that really you? We thought you were dead." They landed at a newly constructed base in what had once been the Rocky Mountains. Lisa met them personally, her face scarred but her eyes bright with life. She embraced Eleanor tightly. "You did it," she said. "Whatever you did out there, it worked. The Cravor just broke down." She told them what had happened on Earth. 3 months ago, the occupying forces had suddenly stopped functioning as a unified force. Some drones collapsed on the spot. Others went into frenzied rampages, destroying everything around them, including other Cravor. Some fled in terror. The resistance groups worldwide had seized the opportunity, liberating processing centers and capturing Cravor technology. They discovered that many drones were now capable of rudimentary communication, expressing confusion and fear. "It's like they're children," Lisa explained. "They've never had to think for themselves before, never had to feel emotions. Some of them just sit and stare at their hands for hours like they can't believe those hands belong to them." Eleanor introduced the Nizari, explaining their role in creating the weapon and their history with the Cravor. Lisa was skeptical at first but accepted their help when she saw how much they knew about the enemy technology. Over the next few weeks, reports came in from across the solar system and beyond. The effect of the neurological virus was universal, but varied widely. Many Cravor had committed suicide, unable to bear the isolation of individual consciousness. Others, experiencing empathy for the first time, were overwhelmed with guilt at what they had participated in. A small fraction, adapting more quickly to individuality, attempted to maintain the empire through conventional means. Without the advantage of the hive mind, however, they were easily defeated by the coordinated human counterattack. Eleanor established communication with those Cravor individuals who sought peace. Alan worked with them to understand their new neural architecture, helping those who wished to adapt to their changed existence. 5 years passed. Earth slowly rebuilt, incorporating salvaged Cravor technology and benefiting from Nizari knowledge. Human colonies extended beyond the solar system, establishing outposts on distant worlds. The surviving Cravor had splintered into multiple groups. Some lived peacefully among humans and Nizari, learning to value individual existence. Others isolated themselves, trying to recreate their old way of life without the hive mind. Eleanor now served as ambassador to a coalition of species that had emerged from hiding since the Cravor's fall. Many had been watching humanity's struggle, too afraid to help but inspired by their eventual victory. One evening, as she worked in her office overlooking the rebuilt city of New Denver, Eleanor received a strange transmission from deep space. The signal pattern was unlike anything human or Nizari or Cravor. With the help of the archive, she decoded the message. It was a warning, sent from the edge of the galaxy. The unnamed threat that the Cravor had been fleeing for millennia had noticed the sudden silence of their old enemy. Now it was turning its attention toward the species that had defeated the Cravor, toward humanity. Eleanor should have been afraid. Instead, she felt a strange calm as she contacted Rodriguez, Alan, and the other leaders of the new human Nizari. Alliance. We have a new problem, she told them, sharing the decoded message. Rodriguez, now Admiral of Earth's growing fleet, studied the data with a grim smile. Another hive mind species? Yes, Eleanor confirmed. Older, larger, and more powerful than the Kravor ever were. Then we already know their weakness, Alan said. Eleanor nodded. The neurological virus would need to be modified again, adapted to a new neural structure. But the principle remained the same. Against a species that had never known individuality, the gift of self-awareness was the ultimate weapon. They brought hell to the universe, she said, echoing her words from 5 years ago. And humanity responded with a nightmare. If this new threat comes, we'll be ready. She looked out at the stars, no longer distant and unreachable. Humanity had survived its darkest hour and emerged stronger. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Humans, Nizari, and even former Kravor, each contributing the unique strength that only truly individual minds could provide.